Great. So we're going to go ahead and get started today. Good morning and welcome to the next Workday Core Concepts session for the HR and payroll community. Today's topic is focused on academic appointments, specific for human resources and payroll at Ohio State. My name is William Ashley. I am the Director of Communications and Engagement for the Enterprise Project. I'll be moderating today's conversation, and I'm joined by two colleagues from the Enterprise Project's HR and Change Management team, and I will ask them to quickly introduce themselves, please.
Sure. My name is Amanda John Donato. I am an HR Change Analyst on the Enterprise Project, and just a brief background, I've been with OSU for about 6 years now. I started in the Comprehensive Cancer Center as an HR associate, and I was also an immigration specialist supporting the College of Medicine and Medical Center before this.
And hello, I'm Stacy Dutton. I am the reporting lead for the HR workstream, and I'm also working as an analyst on the academics workstream. I've been at Ohio State for about 14 years, and prior to this, I was working as a service center manager in the College of Education and Human Ecology.
Great. Thanks to both of you, and thanks to everyone here for joining us this morning and taking some time to learn about this topic of academic appointments. I want to start with a few housekeeping items on how this session will be run today. Per all of our previous Carmen Connect sessions, this one has one-way audio only. That means you can hear us, but we can't hear you. Regardless, we still want to get your questions and feedback and input throughout the session. And to do that, I'll ask you to use the chat feature on the bottom right of your screen to type in questions along the way. Please feel free to type in the questions as you have them, and time permitting, we'll address them in real time. But we also have a few spots during the presentation where we'll stop and answer any questions that have been populating throughout the chat. I know the chat feature is working for many of you because I've already seen your responses to our sound check, but I do want to do one more test of that chat feature. And that's because we know a lot of groups across campus like to watch these sessions in groups of teams. We know that several people might sit in a conference room to hear about these topics. And in order for us to get a better sense of the true number and reach of our audience, I'm going to ask that if you are in one of those group watch parties that we call, can you please type in the chat the number of people in your room? No need to do this if you're sitting alone watching this at a computer, but if there's two or more of you in a room listening to this session and following along, please use the chat feature just to type in that number, which will really help us capture how many people are attending these sessions. Please also know the session is being recorded, and it'll be made available to you after the session and to people who are unable to attend. That'll be posted on the Enterprise Project website, as well as shared in HR Now and Payroll Services emails. And lastly, our intent today is to cover really the basic concepts and an introduction to the academic unit structure within Workday and this concept of academic appointments. I just say that because we don't want you to think that this is a formal training or that you have to come out of here with a mastery of this content. It's really just an introduction for you to get to know these terms so that when you do step into training later on, it might not be brand new to you. So this is the fourth in our Workday Core Concepts series for HR and payroll. If you've been following along with us this whole time, you may remember your Workday 101 session back in December or January. We also went over the foundation data model and the concept of supervisory organizations, which is how managerial data is organized and structured within Workday. And our last session covered the concept of staffing models, which you might remember the terms position management and job management. Today we're focusing on academic appointments, and later on this summer you'll have invites to future sessions, including HR and payroll business processes and security and reports within Workday. And just to note that all of those past sessions are available for viewing on the Enterprise Project website. This is all available on the HR and payroll section of our website. The link is at the bottom of this screen. But if you go on our homepage, you'll see toward the bottom there's a button that says HR and Payroll Professionals. And there's this graphic here that explains this Workday Core Concept series, as well as a collection of links to recordings and materials from all of our past sessions. We do try to structure this really informal information series to have each concept build off the past one. So it's really important and helpful if you can view past sessions before tuning into future ones to more fully understand some of the concepts and follow along. So with that, I'll pretty soon turn it over to Amanda, but I'll give you a quick rundown of our agenda for today. We'll do a review of those key concepts from the last Workday Core Concepts series, including the foundation data model and our staffing models. Amanda will go through some important terms related to academic appointments, and then go through the main topic for today, which is introducing academic units, academic appointments, and then showing you what those concepts look like by hopping into our Workday environment and doing a demonstration of those different areas. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda to start off the session.
Okay, thank you, William. All right, so as a recap, I want to quickly review items that we previously covered in the last two core concept sessions and start off with the foundation data model of Workday, or FDM. The foundation data model represents how Ohio State will organize and manage data across three areas of finance, human capital management, and student. The foundation data model enables segregation of data while still allowing users to leverage data across all three areas for reporting and processing transactions within Workday. And one of the three components of FDM is the supervisory organizations, or SUPORGs. A SUPORG is a grouping of employees or workers, or a team, who report to the same manager. And when we link these SUPORGs together, it will create a hierarchy to reflect Ohio State's reporting structure all the way up to President Drake. So think of SUPORGs as a dynamic and robust org chart based on who reports to who. Our supervisory organization structure is important because it will serve as the backbone for how staffing transactions will route for reviews or approvals, and provides the framework for assigning security. Related to supervisory organizations is the concept of staffing models, which was introduced to you at the last Carmen Connect session. And staffing models will determine how jobs are defined and filled. They provide flexibility and control over staffing, and they support the diverse staffing needs across the university. So per the graphic on your screen, which I found to be really helpful when I started learning about staffing models, is the chair analogy. So for position management on the top, think of the chair being equivalent to a position. When an employee is hired, they sit in the chair, and when the employee transfers or terminates, the chair stays and will be available to be occupied by another worker. With job management, think of the chair as a folding chair. When the employee is hired, they pull up the folding chair, sit in the chair while they're an active employee, but this time, when they leave the job, the folding chair is folded up and disappears. And there's not an empty position sitting out there as a placeholder for the next employee to be hired into. So as William mentioned, if you want to learn more about these concepts or get a refresh, please visit the Enterprise Project website to access the recordings. Okay, so before I talk about terminology, I just want to mention that I know some of you on the call support faculty and some may not. There will be information I talk through that is specific to faculty, so please don't worry if you don't recognize some of the faculty terminology. This is still functionality that is important to understand as an HR professional, as it will apply to non-faculty, such as our graduate teaching associates. All right, so let's talk terminology. I want to take a moment to point out some of the new Workday terminology that you will be hearing as we talk about the new concept and functionality of academic appointments. Two of them, you can probably guess, are academic appointment and academic unit. I will reiterate the definitions and provide context for you throughout the session, but an academic appointment is a new set of data that we will leverage in Workday for employees and affiliates of Ohio State who are here in an academic or teaching capacity. Academic appointments have specific meaning in Workday. Today, we use the term appointment and job or position interchangeably. So this will be a shift in nomenclature that we need to be mindful of when we use the term appointment. And academic appointments are tied to academic units in Workday, or really the student side of the house. And the academic unit will represent Ohio State's academic structure, or what we think of as our colleges or tenure initiating units. Also, there are 4 track types that we use when we are referring to our faculty: tenure track, research track, clinical track, and associated track. These will still remain tracks for faculty in the future. However, in Workday, track types will expand to represent all types of academic appointments that can exist for varying populations in Workday. So as we move to Workday, there are terminology shifts and new functionality that will require us to transform in some way how we identify, access, and track data on our employees. So let's talk more about the academic units. The academic unit structure is one of the 3 components of the foundation data model. Today, we will introduce the academic unit, or what you will hear called the AU structure in Workday. And then we'll really focus on the HR element tied to the academic unit, which are the academic appointments. So in Workday, academic units are the primary organizational dimension in Workday Student. They are used to represent our departments, schools, colleges, and other academic entities at Ohio State. These units can recruit prospective students, admit students, offer programs of study, or administer financial aid, just as they do today. And academic units are used as the tenure initiating unit, or our TIU, for faculty promotion and tenure. And also in conjunction with academic appointments, they'd help designate instructors for classes. So employees with an academic or teaching position, such as our faculty, will have an academic appointment tied to an academic unit in addition to their position. So let's define the academic appointment further. Academic appointments, as I mentioned a little earlier, are a new data element or record that we can assign to someone in Workday in addition to their job or their employment record. So depicted on your screen here is a worker profile in Workday. On the left-hand side of the worker profile of Susan Travers here, which I zoomed in on, it shows 2 highlighted tabs. One for job, which will reflect the employee's job data and details specific to their employment. And the academic tab reflects the worker's academic data or their academic appointment information. So Susan Travers is in an academic job as a professor, so she will have both of these tabs on her worker profile to reflect the data or the attributes both specific to her employment and then her academic relationship to Ohio State. So with this being said, it's important to emphasize that Professor Travers' job here and academic appointment are distinct, and they're distinct because they're both on different pages, but also because of the information that's on these records. So we will look at this as a part of the demonstration later, but academic appointments track an academic appointee's time at the university. There's no direct relationship to employment, but you can associate an appointment to a filled position. Hang tight for this. I'm going to show you this in Workday shortly. So in addition to capturing and tracking additional data, academic appointments must be assigned to anyone who will be an instructor on a course. So when Workday Student goes live in July 2021, which is a year after the HR side of Workday goes live, is when the student side of Ohio State will leverage these academic appointments to assign instructors to a course. So one thing you're probably curious about is who all will have academic appointments in Workday. And to date, we have identified populations at Ohio State that will have an academic appointment in addition to their job, and in some instances, there are individuals that will only have an academic appointment and no job in Workday. Yep, that's right. With this functionality, academic appointments will replace some unpaid job records that exist in PeopleSoft. Okay, so let's talk first about the group that will have an academic appointment in addition to their job record, which are listed on the screen here. I will be referring to these individuals as our academic workers in Workday. These are employees who have an academic or teaching relationship to Ohio State in a paid capacity. On the right side of the screen are the populations of workers who will have an academic appointment to represent this relationship to a specific academic unit. A lot of these should be familiar to you if you have these individuals in your college or unit. But to clarify a few, the first one listed, administrative, refers to faculty who are appointed to leadership roles at Ohio State, such as our deans, chairs, and provosts, Dr. McPheron. Also, the title of staff instructor, towards the bottom of the list, refers to our staff who teach as a part of their staff position, which per policy is up to 33% of their job. So think of our advising staff. As a part of their job, they teach a course. And an academic appointment can be correlated to an employee's position, as I mentioned, and in most instances will be the case. An example of when an appointment is not correlated to a position would be when a faculty member has a courtesy appointment in a different college. So employees can have multiple appointments and multiple jobs. Having multiple appointments does not necessarily mean they have multiple jobs. So I'm sure you may be trying to visualize this, and I did the same thing when I was learning this new concept, but I'll be showing you these scenarios as a part of the demonstration later, which is hopefully going to help connect some dots for you. So the second group that will have an academic appointment are what we will refer to as academic affiliates in Workday. These are people who are affiliated to Ohio State through some academic capacity, who are not paid or rendering services like our employees, but they often need access to our systems and are sometimes here on campus. And our academic affiliate population will be comprised of our unpaid adjunct faculty, our unpaid practice faculty, and unpaid visiting faculty. They will have an academic appointment and no job record. For the practice or visiting faculty who are paid, they will be considered employees or our academic workers with a job and an academic appointment. So this is a new way to have people with no other affiliation as an employee represented without creating an unpaid position or job record for them and having them look like employees in the system when they're really not. So we're getting to a state of cleaner data with this functionality. So now that I have defined what an academic appointment is, I want to provide a bit more context on the difference between an academic appointment and a job in Workday, or what we think of today as our job records in PeopleSoft. An employee in Workday will have a job on their worker profile with all of their employee details that we think of today. Position details, compensation, FTE, etc. Whereas the academic appointment, which is also tied to the employee's worker profile, will only represent data about their academic or their teaching relationship to Ohio State. Also, compensation and funding can only be on an employee's job, and not tied to their academic appointment. And just as today, funding can be split in different ways. And just a side note about costing or funding, if your mind's going here, we will be having a session dedicated to this to address how this will work in Workday and answer questions you may have in this space. And lastly on this slide, reporting relationships are tied to positions, and employees cannot report to an academic appointment. So in the beginning of our session, I called out that track types used today will expand when it comes to academic appointments in Workday. You can see on the screen our track types we refer to today, and this will not change. Rather, Workday uses that term, track types, to identify the different populations for assigning an academic appointment to. As you can see on the right side, these are all track types representative of academic workers and academic affiliates I mentioned earlier. You will notice that we are expanding track types and breaking out the faculty that fall under associated track to be able to clearly distinguish associated track faculty at the academic appointment level. So creating a track type for each of these populations and giving them an academic appointment will provide a clearer picture of our teaching population that we do not have today. So let's talk about what's on these academic appointments. I mentioned earlier the academic appointment for an employee or affiliate is meant to reflect attributes specific to their academic relationship, really an added layer of data for tracking and analytic purposes. On the screen are two lists of items that we will capture on academic appointments. All academic appointments will have the listed basic attributes, and our tenure track faculty will have additional data. The information we are going to be maintaining on an academic appointment is information your HR or college leaders know, track, and maybe analyze regularly, but is accessed by pulling different data from various places or requesting it, and even maintaining your own spreadsheets. Also today, all of the promotion and tenure information on our faculty is centrally maintained by the Office of Academic Affairs, specifically by the HR Director, Bobby Hauser. So with academic appointments, we will have the ability to create and maintain this data in line with staffing changes as they happen, and have immediate line of sight to this information within one system. And on the right side of your screen, this is a graphic showing an example of the elements that make up an academic appointment for a tenure track associate professor. And then the appointment itself links the faculty member to the correct academic unit. Okay, so we'll take a pause for questions and I'll hand it back over to William.
Thanks, Amanda. Great job. Few questions have come in, so while we're talking through these first questions, please feel free to type more in the chat here, and we'll try to address as many as possible before moving on to the next section. So looking at Amanda and Stacy here as our content experts, we did get some questions about additional populations and how they'll be identified. So if we could talk a little bit about first how postdocs might be identified within the academic unit structure.
Sure. So postdocs, and you might be referring to fellows or researchers, those individuals will have a position in Workday. And as of now, we have not identified them as having academic appointments.
Okay, great. And then the second one that came in was about visiting scholars.
Sure. So right now, visiting scholars is a population that we know can be paid or unpaid. And right now, we're taking a look at populations, what we're calling non-employee populations right now, and visiting scholars fit in that. So we're still working through the final look and feel of visiting scholars. So great question, but still more to come in that space.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. The next question came in is, how will reporting relationships be captured for non-salaried faculty without an employment relationship?
Sure. So right now, anybody who has an academic appointment in Workday with no job, so you're right, our affiliates, they do not have a reporting structure on them. So we don't identify a manager for them. They really sit in an academic unit. So right now, we don't have that manager identified on them.
And I would just say that if you have, like a non-salaried faculty member who has direct reports, if they also have a paid, record, that we would want to probably do some data cleanup to get the direct reports reporting to the paid record, so that the soup org structure is a little bit more clean. And that's something that you'll hear more from us about in the coming weeks.
Okay. Thank you. Sounds good. We had a question come in. Is there anything different necessary for faculty working on a regional campus? Yeah.
No, I don't think that there's anything different. The academic unit would be the same, that it is today, which I think usually reports up through their main campus unit. So.
Okay. Take a quick pause to see if anyone has any additional questions or need any further clarification before moving on to the next part of the session. And just as a reminder, this is kind of a first introduction to these concepts, and so know that as we keep figuring out what this looks like for Ohio State, we'll be building that into all of our training materials for when training starts before Workday goes live. So we have a little bit of a clarification on the regional campus question. So they report to the dean director on campus, but then they're tenured in Columbus. So how would the reporting or the org structure look?
I think that the academic unit or the academic appointment is going to show their tenure in Columbus. And then I'm assuming on the soup org side, they would still report to their the dean or director on the campus as normal.
That's correct.
Cool. Great questions. And feel free to keep asking those. And we'll, of course, make sure that we're capturing that kind of information. This is helpful for us as we're building our training materials to hear these kind of questions to make sure that we're proactively addressing them when it comes time in training. Okay. I see one more person still typing, so hold on for just a second. So good question, Jim. And so I think we might get to this a little bit later. The question is, who's going to enter the academic appointment information into Workday? Great question, and I know Amanda plans to address that within a few slides in the presentation, so that might be a great segue for us to move it on to the next section.
Okay, so for the majority of the remainder of our time today, I will be going into a Workday environment to give you a look at academic appointments. I will be showing you the following scenarios: an employee with a job and no academic appointment, an employee with both a job and an academic appointment, an employee with a job and multiple academic appointments, an academic affiliate with an academic appointment and no job, and then, time permitted, I will show you what an academic unit looks like. So for this demonstration, we will be in a Workday environment with Ohio State data, different than the last environments we have been in, and the workers we will be using have had their names changed for security reasons. And I do want to note that the configuration details, so for example, the fields or some data that you see, is subject to change with ongoing configuration efforts that are happening. So exactly what you see is not final state for OSU. Okay, let's jump into Workday. Okay, so welcome back to the Workday homepage. You will see that I am logged into Workday as myself for this demonstration. And this environment is also a testing environment, meaning that what we configure in Workday for Ohio State, we have to test. Everything we add, anything we change, we test to make sure that it works the way we want. So with that being said, you might notice there are over 1,000 items in my inbox, and this is just due to the extensive testing that's happening right now. I wanted to call it out just in case it caught some of your eyes. So let's dig into the demonstration scenarios. And first, I want to show you an employee who is in a job that is not academic in nature, Allison Anderson. So I'm going to navigate to her worker profile by searching for her in the search bar at the top of your screen. All right, and the predictive search functionality with OSU starts to recognize what I'm typing, and I'll click into her name, which will take me to her profile. So here we see that Allison is a marketing and communications specialist, and she's reporting to Philip Sacken, who's in the nursing department, or the College of Nursing Administration department. And before we focus on academic appointment details, I want to quickly point out some basic features about the worker profile. So at the top corner is her name and title, and if she had multiple jobs, there would be a double arrow feature icon next to her title. We talked about this in the one of the last sessions as well, but this would allow you to navigate to the secondary job if there was one here. Also, you may remember the related actions icon. It will either say action like this one, or it will look like an ellipsis, which is what this one looks like as well. Both the same thing. And these icons will show up all over Workday, where you can take action on an employee right from where you are. All right, so along the left side of the screen, down here in this red section, are attributes about this employee that we can click into for more information. And based on security roles, if you do not have access to see some of this information, such as compensation details or benefits, the icon will not appear at all. So back to pointing out some academic details. You will notice that Allison does not have an academic tab here on the left side because she is in a job that is not academic or teaching. She's not in that capacity, so there's no need for her to have an academic appointment. So let's now navigate to an employee who has a job plus an academic appointment. So we're going to look at Professor Christine Abbott. So I'm going to go to the search bar here to look for her. And I'll click her name. So Professor Abbott is an assistant professor in cancer biology and genetics, reporting to Professor Carlo Croce. And this individual has no additional jobs or affiliations other than this one position. When a worker is hired into a position and they are considered one of our academic workers or fall into one of the track types I mentioned, the academic appointment will be added to their record in Workday. So let's take a look at this academic data. And I'll go to the Academics tab. And we see information about her academic relationship with Ohio State in a variety of different ways here. We can see that. But right away, we get this at-a-glance view of some data, which is a mix of job details and appointment data. And we can quickly gather some new information about her that we cannot in PeopleSoft today. We can see by looking under current appointments that she is in a track type of tenure track and a rank of assistant professor. And over here under general information, under the tenure status, we see she's on track for tenure. So to get to more details specific to her academic appointment, I can click on Current Appointments tab, which takes me to a page that shows all current active academic appointments for the employee, and some additional details right here about that. If she had more than one academic appointment, such as a courtesy appointment in another department, we would see that listed here as well. So I'm going to click on this magnifying glass. This will always take me to a full view of this specific academic appointment, where I can see details pertaining to her tenure track assistant professor appointment. And I'm not going to walk through all of these fields you see on the screen, and as I mentioned, some of this is subject to change. Some data may be populated, some fields may go away, so just be aware. But as I shared earlier, along with basic appointment details, some of the fields you'll see here are going to be specific to tenure track information. If Professor Abbott was not on the tenure track, this tenure track information would not even be visible or be able to click into. Another great feature to quickly point out, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, is this supporting information on the right side of the screen. Here I can conveniently see related information about Professor Abbott without having to navigate to a different page. I see all of her current appointments and positions. But if she had additional jobs or appointments, I would also see them listed here. So as you continue to see more of Workday, you will notice that there will be added related data like this for convenience, as oftentimes when we are doing information gathering, we need a combination of different yet linked data to accomplish our work or the task at hand. And Workday was designed with that in mind. So let's move on to the next scenario, which is going to build upon this one. And first, I'm actually going to navigate out of the environment to walk you through some PeopleSoft data screenshots to introduce the next scenario, to help you visualize the changes from PeopleSoft to Workday. So for this scenario, I will be using Professor John Allen, who is a full-time tenured professor in biosciences, which is a division of the College of Dentistry. And he also has 2 courtesy appointments, one in psychology and one in neuroscience. So here you see a screenshot from PeopleSoft of Professor John Allen's job record 0, which represents his primary full-time paid position with the Division of Biosciences. His next job record, record 1, represents his courtesy appointment in psychology. We assume that this is a courtesy appointment because it is a secondary appointment and is at 0.1 standard hours with no compensation tied to it. Those are the attributes we're looking at to identify that this is courtesy. The same goes for his next job record, record 2 in neuroscience. So today, Professor Allen has 3 job records, but only one is really his paid position, and the others represented are an agreed upon affiliation. So let's take a look at how this will change with Workday. Going back into the Workday environment here, and I'm just going to show you quickly. I can always get back to my home page by clicking the block O. Okay, so let's navigate to Professor Allen's worker profile. I'll click his name. And I will show you how, with academic appointments, we can clearly distinguish between his paid job in dentistry and the type of affiliations with psychology and neuroscience. So I'm going to click on his job tab, and then I'm going to go to all current jobs. His paid position in biosciences is listed here. And also you will notice that he does not have a double arrow icon next to his title under his name. Remember, that would signify that an employee is currently occupying more than one job. And now I'm going to navigate to the Academics tab. And I'm going to go to Current Appointments tab at the top. And here we see that Professor Allen has 3 academic appointments. One is corresponding to his paid professor position in the College of Dentistry. Again, faculty will always have an academic appointment that corresponds to their faculty position. And the other 2 represent his 2 courtesy appointments with psychology and neuroscience. So in Workday, we can see here that we will represent Professor Allen's paid and unpaid relationships more accurately by use of academic appointments. Okay, one more scenario to walk through and show you is an individual with an academic appointment and no job. So I'm going to navigate to Joanne Applegate. And instead of clicking here this time, I'm actually just going to hit enter and show you that this takes you to a search results page. So Professor Applegate is an unpaid adjunct professor in animal sciences. In Workday, Professor Applegate is considered an affiliate, as she has no historical or current employment with Ohio State. And here, you notice even before we get to her profile, we can see she is an affiliate. Affiliates in Workday will always be clearly identifiable, as they will have affiliate in parentheses next to their names. So let's click in here to take me to her affiliate profile. So her profile, as you can see, is much more condensed compared to that of an employee. She only has an academics tab, not a job tab or compensation or benefits, things like that on the screen. So when I click into this academics tab, I can see right away that she is an adjunct faculty in the academic unit of animal sciences, and she's been in this relationship since January of 2010. Okay, so one final thing, I think we're still good on time. I want to show you the academic unit. So I'm not going to use the search bar, but I have mentioned that academic appointments are tied to academic units on the student side, which is also used to identify the tenure initiating unit. So these academic appointments really serve as the bridge from the HR side to the student side of Workday. And since we're looking at an individual with an appointment that is linked to animal sciences, let's take a look at that academic unit. So I'm going to navigate to the summary page, and I'll click Animal Sciences. And as you've heard before, anything blue in Workday means you can do. So we'll click into that. And you are now looking at data on the Animal Sciences academic unit. At the top here, it clearly highlights that this is an academic unit we're looking at, and specifically at the department level. And the superior academic unit, the one that Animal Sciences rolls up into, is the College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Sciences. So if I click on this Academic Appointments tab right here, I'm going to scroll a little bit. Here you can see listed all of the individuals, both employees or affiliates, who have an academic appointment with Animal Sciences. Plus, we see some key characteristics about their relationship to this academic unit. As you may recall, we can look at employees and their reporting relationships or our supervisory organizations in the fun org chart view. We can also view individuals tied to an academic unit in an org chart view as well, except people are not organized in a hierarchy on the academic unit. That is only when we are looking at the supervisory organization. So I will quickly show you that org chart view of the academic unit. So I'm going to go to my related actions icon of the Animal Sciences academic unit, and I'm going to navigate to the org chart. All right, so here you see the org chart view of the academic unit, and we see the same individuals with an academic appointment in animal sciences in an org chart format. So if you wanted to see, again, the reporting structure for an employee such as Anna Grum, you would need to navigate to their worker profile or their SOUP org chart. Okay, so that concludes the demonstration part of today. And before we wrap up, I want to talk about who will maintain academic appointment data and who will have access to it. So hopefully answering one of the questions we had earlier. At this time, academic appointment data for all employees and affiliates will be centrally maintained and not something that each college or unit would be responsible for maintaining. Today, as I mentioned, much of this academic data, specifically for our tenure, clinical, and research faculty, is maintained by the Office of Academic Affairs. And with the transition to Workday, we are going to shift this work from one person maintaining all of this to a central and specialized team in HR shared services. And even though this data will be maintained by different people, OAA will continue to provide oversight, and the approval processes and practices will remain in place for tenure, clinical, and research track faculty just as they do today. So as for who can see this data, all HR professionals will have access to all academic appointment data across Ohio State. And anyone who has an academic appointment themselves will see this data on themselves. And then anyone who is identified as a manager in Workday to someone with an academic appointment, the managers will have access to see this data on their own employees. And something we did not dive into today, but will as we get closer to Workday Go Live, is reporting functionality. We are currently in the process of building out some amazing reports around this data that are going to be dynamic and allow you to manipulate the data. There are even colors in there, which is exciting. So we'll be able to do that all within Workday. So more to come. Okay, I know this session was full of a lot of new information about a new concept, and this just speaks to the enterprise project guiding principle of being forward-thinking and how we as a community need to have that transformational mindset as we implement this new technology. So as you walk away from this and digest what you heard, I hope you can remember these 5 points. So first, we will be consistently maintaining key attributes about employees and affiliates' academic or teaching relationship in one system through academic appointments. And as I just mentioned, a benefit of this functionality is greater visibility into items such as who's teaching a course or who's coming up on promotion. And third, an individual must have an academic appointment in Workday for instructor status on a course. Also, these appointments will replace unpaid job records. This is totally awesome, I think, and maybe some of you are as excited as me about this because we will have cleaner job data, eliminating the need for unpaid job records for some faculty populations. And lastly, this is a terminology change that we will make because of the functionality we are adopting with Workday, and when we are referring to Workday, having an appointment will be different than having a job or a position in the system. Okay, so that concludes my point, and I'll hand it back over to William.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Hope everyone learned a little bit today about the concept of academic appointments. We got about 10 minutes left in this session for any outstanding questions that people may have. Now is the time to use that chat feature to type in your questions, and Stacy and Amanda will help us answer any questions that you may have. So, okay. I don't see anyone typing in the chat. So I'll go in there, type in the chat, and make sure that everyone has access to the Enterprise Project email address. If you do have any questions still, but don't want to ask them during the session, please do send them to the Enterprise Project email address that is monitored daily, and we will happily answer those questions for you. In the meantime, if you haven't yet subscribed to our newsletter, it's the monthly Enterprise Project Digest. A link is there on your screen, go.osu.edu/EP Digest That comes out every month. It includes kind of the latest updates. It includes links to these sessions, as well as our monthly status report to be as transparent to the university community as possible. And again, there on the screen is the Enterprise Project email address. I want to thank Stacy and Amanda for taking the time to walk us through and introduce these new sessions today. The recording will be available and shared in HR Now in the coming weeks. In the meantime, we will see you at our next session. Thank you all very much.